Hey guys, this is Damon from DMAP Mastering. What we're going to do today is take a deep dive into compression and EQ on your Mixdown in preparation for mastering. What does that mean? Glad you asked. What that means is when clients submit their Mixdown tracks to mastering engineers, sometimes it can reveal inconsistencies or mistakes that you may not have heard before in the Mixdown. That's because the mastering process puts a floodlight, like an LED floodlight, on your Mixdown, meaning it will highlight everything good and it will highlight everything not so good. So it's very important to first start off with the recording process and getting good sourcing, whether it's mics, instruments, samples, sounds, levels, what have you, and then having a good mixdown technique. And what I'm finding is a lot of people don't mix with mastering in mind, meaning how am I going to make this song sound great as is, so all the mastering engineer has to do is a little bit of leveling, a little bit of correction, and it sounds great. A lot of times my clients send me stuff and the expectation is that, there's this mastering pixie dust that fixes everything, and it's not necessarily true. I'm not in the business of taking anybody's money. I'm in the business of educating so we can all have better recordings. So here we go. Let's dive right in. Here is a song called What I Like from an artist and good friend of mine, Craig Lloyd, yet to be released. Thank you for the permission for using your song, my friend. And I'm going to give you it's already mixed, but we're gonna kind of remix it. We're gonna keep the levels the same, but we're gonna remix it with the compressor and EQ settings that we have, and I'm gonna run through everything. Okay, what we're gonna do is listen to this mix, and all it has is compression, EQ, a little bit of bus compression, and a little bit of limiting. But we're not gonna pay so much attention to the levels of the bus compression or the limiter right now. The limiter is pretty much just to bring it up to a competitive, non-squashing listening level for YouTube. And we're not going to look at the levels for the SSL bus compressor I'm using right now. That will be coming in a following tutorial. So what we're going to do right now is listen to the song, intro, hook, and verse, and then I'll stop it, just so you get an idea of what the song sounds like mixed down fully. Here we go. So there you go, folks. That's the song What I Like from Mr. Craig Lloyd. And that's what the song sounds like. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to bypass the bus compressor. I'm going to bypass all of the effects, which is only reverb and delay. I'll go ahead and turn these off so our eye doesn't focus on anything that's on. And what I'm also doing is going to turn off all of the EQ and compression. So now we're going to hear the song with no EQ and no compression. And I'll just play it from the hook to the verse. Caramel skin, sweet and tempting, body wrapped in pure affection. So enticing, no denying, you're a queen of fantasy. Caramel skin, sweet and tempting, body wrapped in pure affection. So enticing, no denying, you're a queen of fantasy. I've got it all. So as you can hear, humongous difference, right? These are the raw tracks as I got them just mixed and leveled out. No compression, no EQ. Sounds very dry, very warm, based on the way it was recorded through a lot of Neve equipment. And this is what we were left with. The only thing I'm going to do is use native plugins from Logic Pro. The only other plugins that I'm not using that are Logic related, that are not Logic related, is the SSL bus compressor and the Pro L2 limiter. But again, we'll get to that in another following tutorial. So for right now, what I want to do is let's go through each track. We have like an 808 kick actually. We have a kick drum, snare, claps that comes in only on the hook, on the verse, hi-hats and crashes, which includes some hi-hats, crashes. We have bass, instruments, which is I have to a bus, which is basically some pads, piano, arps, synths, and guitar. We also have a leads bus, which I broke up into different buses because I have a couple of effects I'm going to add on there, or I did add on there, which we'll take off right now. And I also have my hook bus, left and right. Well, actually I have a mono, excuse me. And then I have my hook Adlibs, which are, low 3-part harmonies pretty much, low, mid, highs. And I pan them accordingly. I like panning them, and Logic doesn't have the same panning parameters as Pro Tools. Pro Tools, you can go all the way to 100. Logic, I think, is 63. You can max out. So I just divided it by a third. 20 for the lows, 40 for the mid, 60 for the highs. I always like to do that, pan the highs wide. Something weird about panning low wide. So I pan lows always either middle or short pans. And that's about it for that. And pretty much all of these hook ad-libs are copy and pasted over. Sang it over once and pasted it over. So it's not really a huge amount of tracks that I'm working with. But to keep it nice and simple, I've grouped everything to a bus. So it's nice and neat, and it fits in our screen nicely so we can see everything. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to start on the hook. And I'm going to go track by track. We're going to listen to what compression does. And we're going to play before and play and after. So while this is not really a compression tutorial per se, or EQ tutorial, it's more of a compression and EQ tutorial for your Mixdown, because it's really a cohesive effort to get compression and EQ working together using the right settings. But I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention and go over what the settings did. So let's look at the settings on a Logic Pro compressor. This is just a regular Platinum digital compressor that Logic Pro comes with. And I wanted to showcase this because I'm going to show you how we can get great sound out of just using Logic plugins. We don't need anything fancy. You can use the tools that comes with your DAW. And then when you need more tools in your toolkit, once you master what you have, feel free to do so. But it's not necessary to go and subscribe to all these plugin manufacturers. It's not necessary. It's not going to get you great sound if you don't have the basic knowledge. I can get you the best basketball and great Jordan sneakers, but if you don't know how to shoot a jump shot, the sneakers does nothing for you. It's not the shoes. We're basically going to use a Logic stock compressor on all of these tracks. So let me quickly explain what the attack, release, threshold, ratio, and makeup gain are. The attack is how fast do you want the compressor to clamp down on your sound. A slow attack will allow the initial transient to go through, and a fast attack will clamp down on it more to bring up more of the sustain. A release is pretty much the opposite of attack. The release is how fast is the compressor going to let go of compression. So for example, a percussive instrument like a snare drum, if you had a slow attack and a fast release, it will give you a very punchy sound. If you had a very fast attack and a fast release, it'll give you a very fat sound. Because it's going to kind of shave off that initial transient. And depending on the sound you want, you can experiment with your ears. The threshold is how hard I'm going to hit the compression in terms of my threshold, when I want it to start compressing, at what level. Ratio is actually how hard you want to hit the compressor. So if I went to 30, which is pretty much limiting, that's like a horizontal line. I don't want anything going above that line. We're not going to go that drastic. We're going to go probably about 4, which is decent. 4 is a nice little kind of gradual way to get into compression, to ease into compression. And then your makeup gain is, as you bring down the threshold, you're going to lose a little bit of volume. So if I'm compressing about 6 dB, I'm going to make up probably about anywhere from 4 to 6 dB. And we'll see that in the example. It also has a function of a knee. And what the knee is, and let me switch over to graph mode, is you see over here this smooth kind of transition into compression. So if I move it all the way to the left, it gives it a hard knee. See that little, it's kind of like a corner. It's very sharp. But if I soften it up, you'll see it eases into compression. So I like to keep it in the middle. I keep it at 0.5. It just sounds smoother to me. One other thing to note, ignore the numbers. The numbers don't really mean anything. I don't even know what they mean. What I mean by that is use your ears. Use your ears and watch the meters to see how much you want to determine how much compression you want in any given signal, whether it's a kick, snare, hi-hat, bass, whatever. Okay? Using your ears is very important. If I told you to use 3 milliseconds to use as an attack for your compressor, it may not work for all compressors. You may use a different compressor and it may not work. So what you want to do is use your ears as you're adjusting your sound, and as you're listening to compression, ease into it. Slow it up, slow it down, and see what sounds good to you. There's really no right or wrong here. It's really what fits the song, what sounds good to your ears. Okay? I just know that for 3 milliseconds for me, for this track, I like it because it gives it a very fat sound. So enough talking. We're going to go through each track and see how they sound. And we'll keep them at the appropriate levels because it's already kind of pre-mixed. I don't want to bore you with mixing with the levels because it's already leveled, but it's already leveled out. But what I do want you to listen for is the what compression sounds like. So I'm going to solo up the kick, and we're going to just listen to the hook because the kick only comes in on the hook. This is the first kick. There are 2 kicks. One is an 808, which is this, which comes in on the verse. And then the kick comes in on the hook. So we'll listen to the hook real quickly without compression. So this is raw. And here's with it in. So if you're listening to it, and I'll play it one more time, you notice that the kick drum without compression feels a little loose. It feels a little flabby, a little out of sorts. But as soon as I kick in the compression, it sort of tightens up. You know, it kind of stays in its sonic space. Still gives a little impact. The attack setting and release settings I have give it a little bit more punch and a little bit more solid. So listen to that now. Listen to the kick again with that in mind. Now we're going to engage the compressor. Okay, so did you guys hear that? If you didn't, that's okay. It takes a while for your ears to get used to the sound of compression. So if you didn't, just rewind back and listen. Make sure you listen to it so you can hear it. So what we're going to do now is we'll close out the compressor. And we'll open up the EQ, another stock EQ from Logic Pro. We're not using anything fancy. So my favorite setting, the first thing I do with a kick EQ, besides compression when I'm EQing, is I do a kind of like a shelf, I guess at 30, 6 dB, octave slope. I could go higher, but for me, it kind of gives it like a resonance that I don't like. So I kind of keep it at 6. It's smooth. I can go as high as I want without listening to it and sounding crazy and removing all my lows. So this is where I like to keep it around 30. I keep the high quality on, obviously, for, have a better quality. And I just bump it up a little bit, 1 dB, because there might be a little bit of loss that the compressor gave it when it squashes the transient a little bit, an impact. So now I want to exaggerate that frequency at 64 hertz. And again, it's not the number. This is just where my ear rested that I like that specific frequency. So I'm, pretty much just looking at the frequency, listening to the frequency, sweeping it around to see which one I like. So let's listen to it with compression without EQ. Here's with EQ. Now, again, what we're listening for is more tightness because of the high pass filter and a little bit of boost, just 1 dB at 64 hertz. Why so low at 1 dB? Because I thought the kick drum sounded fine the way it is. If it was a kick drum that didn't have a lot of sub in it, I would probably boost more at a different frequency. This is why you have to use your ears and not look at the numbers so much. So once again, let's listen to it without. And with. All right. So now let's listen to what it sounds like without both of those processes engaged, and we'll listen to it with both engaged. And what you should hear is a vast difference in sound, from loose to tight and compact and solid. Here we go. Without. And with. All right, so there's your kick drum, EQ'd and compressed. So now let's move on to the snare drum. Same exact process. We're going to listen to it without compression, and we're going to listen to it with compression. And you can listen to it for the same type of tones. Again, ignore the numbers. This is just what my ears liked, what it sounded like. I love what it sounded like at 3 milliseconds, at this release time, at this ratio, at this threshold, at this knee. You can play with these numbers on your song, whatever you want, but you're not going to look at the numbers. You're just using your ears to what sounds good to you. So here we go again. We're going to go through the same process. We're going to listen to the snare without, and then I'm going to engage it with. You're going to listen to how the snare is good sounding snare, snappy, but it gets a little bit more solid when I engage the compressor. Here we go. And here's with. So as you hear, you should have heard the snare drum get a little bit more snappier and a little tighter. I will play it for you one more time. Take a listen to before and after and what the compression does to the snare drum, particularly the attack in the body. This is without compression. This is with. Did you guys hear the difference? Much more solid, much more smack. And I'm only have about 3 dB of compression going on this, as opposed to the kick drum where I had maybe about 6 roughly. So little goes a long way. You don't need to be smashing your drums and your snares, especially stuff that's been already sampled. If you're sampling stuff off of vinyl, it's already been processed. There's not really much you need to do. You can tweak it to fit into your track, but think about it. You sampled the sound because you already liked it. Why mess with it some more? Just leave it the way it is, or add a little piece to it, but you don't have to necessarily change it and destroy it. Keep it natural. Okay, so let's go on to, we'll engage the compressor. We'll close the compressor plug-in out, and I'll listen to the snare in EQ. So what I did here, I did a high pass at 40, and I gave it a little boost at 6,000 K at a little 2 dB boost. Again, ignore the numbers. That's just the region that sounded good to my ears. Could I went a little higher? I could have. I didn't like a lot of the low end that the compression was bringing up, so I took it out. So here we go. This is with compression without the EQ, and I'll engage the EQ. Here's with. So again, what you should have heard was a little bit more snappiness, not as much low end in it, and a little crisper. I'm going to play it back and see if you can notice what the EQ is doing after the compression. See if you hear, you're going to listen for tightness in the snare, a little bit of removal of the low end. It's going to sound a lot more solid and snappy. I'm going to play it without EQ engaged, and I'm going to play it with the EQ engaged. First without. Here's with. All right. So to play it in context, let's play the kick and the snare, just the kick and the snare together. I'm going to play it without the plugins, and then I'll engage them. This is without. And here's with. Hear the difference? Huge difference, and very subtle settings. You don't need to destroy your kicks and your snares. Let them breathe. It's okay, guys. All right, next let's move on to the hi-hats, only because I can play that along with the kick and snare, because the hi-hats crashes come in only on the hook. So let's go to the hi-hats. Hi-hats, very simple. No compression on hi-hats. I normally do not compress hi-hats, especially if they're sampled. So all I did was some high passing at 300 hertz. Again, ignore the numbers. It's just what sounded good to me. And a little bit of sweetening in the 6000K area. Let's listen to what they sound like before and after. And what you're listening to is, again, this is just tightening up the sound. It's not doing anything to the dynamics. I want the dynamics intact with no compression. This is just going to kind of tighten the sound up a little bit. Here we go with the hats EQ disengaged. And engage. And that's what they sound like. So what you should have heard was the low end from the hi-hats. You really don't need low end in hi-hats. I don't think. That's what I think. I mean, you may think different. That's fine. But for me, I try to remove a lot of the low end from the hi-hats as much as I can without sounding unnatural, and give it a little sparkle in that same little range that I liked. So let's listen to it once more without the EQ and with. Now we're going to engage the EQ. Okay, so now let's listen to the hats, kick, and snare together. We'll listen to it, everything with all the no processing, and then I'll engage it. Here we go. With processing. See how it just came alive? Sounds great. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the verse portions. Actually, let's do the bass. Let's do the bass line and the hook. Let's stay on the hook first, because the bass line is the same on the hook as well. So for the bass line, what I did, pretty much the same thing. Compression first, same ratio, same attack. Threshold, I think I got about maybe coming at 6 dB, short release. And the bass line is pretty much the same throughout the whole song. It doesn't really change too much. So I think I compressed it maybe about 6 dB or so. I used the threshold here to control how much I want to compress. I think I got about 6 dB, like I said. Kept the 4:1 ratio, kept the same attack, the same knee, and the same release. So we're going to listen to it before compression, and we'll listen to it after compression. Here we go. Here's with compression. If you were listening, you heard it just fatten up, and it sounded like a nice R&B type of bass line. Nice fat low end, nice controlled low end, but it's fattened up that low mid a little bit. I'll play it one more time so you can hear it without compression, then I'll engage the compression as the song plays. Here we go. Now I'm going to engage compression. So hear the difference? So now let's do the same with EQ. So what I did with the bass line here, there was a lot of upper harmonics that I didn't really need. I kind of just wanted the low. So I cut everything below 300. Okay, I know that seems kind of a lot, but again, I used my ears. And then again, I didn't need all the really super low end rumble. I set the high pass filter to a 30 hertz at a 6 dB slope. And then about 110, it started to sound a little nice to me. So I raised that at a little 1 dB, just a little bit. I didn't want to put too much low end because it already had enough in it, enough beef. But whatever the compressor kind of squashed or took away from, I wanted to add a little bit of that back into the track. So I only used 1 dB. So what we can do from here is listen to the bass line without EQ. It does have the compression on it. So we're going to listen to it with compression, without EQ, and then I'll engage the EQ. You should hear a drastic difference because of this cut. Here we go. Engaging EQ. Let's listen to that one more time. Remember, you can listen to the without EQ and then what the EQ is doing to the bass line after compression. With EQ. So there you have it, folks. A low pass on a lot of the high end because I didn't think I needed it. I wanted the instruments to breathe. So now let's listen to the kick, the snare, the hi-hats, and the bass with and without processing. First, without. Now with processing. So as you hear, the bass now is no longer competing with the kick, which is why I did such a drastic low pass, because the kick has a lot of energy in that range that I didn't want to get rid of, that I liked, that sounded good to me. Some of you may reverse it. You may say, okay, I might low pass the kick and let the bass take that space, but I took the opposite approach. Just what sounded, it's all about what sounds good to you. Okay, so let's move on to the 808. The 808 comes in on the verse only, and I think the bridge, but we'll do 808 first. I think I compressed this to reach about 6 dB of compression, same ratio, same attack, knee, release. The attack, release, and knee will all be the same pretty much for all these examples. So let's listen to this 808-ish kick that comes in on the verse without compression, then I'll engage midway through. Engaging compressor. So as you hear, it's pretty dramatic difference. The 808 was very big and flabby, at least to my ear. And I wanted the compressor to just tighten it up real good. So I compressed it fairly decently at 60 dB. And that attack should smooth off the initial transient, because I really don't want it to take up too much of the low end, because the bass is also going to be playing at the same time as well. And bass frequencies and kick drums and 808s, they all fight the same frequency. So it's pretty much of a chess game, which one is going to have the shine and which one isn't. So let's hear that again. Again, you're listening to the kind of looseness of the 808, and you're going to be listening to the tightness of the 808 once we engage the compressor. Here we go. This is without compression. Here's with compression. There you go. So now let's move on to the EQ. So what I did here, I did kind of a similar trick I did with the Bassline, where I low passed it about 150, because I didn't want all that high end in the 808. I just wanted the low end boom. Again, I high passed it about 30 hertz, and we gave it a little boost, same frequency as the kick, about 1 dB. I didn't need too much because it was already a powerful 808 kick. I don't like to over EQ my kicks if the original sound source sounds great as it is. It's unnecessary. I'm about keeping signals natural. Now, if you need to fix it, that's another thing. But if it sounds good from the start, and that's what attracted you to the sound, into choosing that sound in the first place, you run with it and keep it as natural as possible. So now let's listen to the 808 with compression without the EQ changes I've made. And you're going to listen to it go from still a solid 808, but it's going to have a lot less high end, a lot more low end to it. Here we go. I'm going to disengage it first. We're going to listen to it with the EQ not engaged. I'll let it roll for 4 bars, and then I'll engage it again. Here's with the EQ. Drastic difference, as you can hear. A lot less high end, just straight low end boom. And getting rid of a lot of that 30 and increasing it at the frequency that I liked at 64 was what sounded nice to my ear. So if you didn't quite hear that and get it the first time, rewind that section back, listen to it again, and make sure you hear it, because there is definitely a difference. So now let's move on to the claps, and the claps only show up again in the verse. So here we go. We're gonna listen to the clap again. I think I got about 3 dB of gain reduction on the threshold. I got a 4-to-1 ratio. Same attack, same release. Makeup game obviously is gonna be a little bit different depending on the threshold. And I have a soft knee. So we're gonna listen to the claps without compression. Here we go. And then I'll engage the compressor midway through. Here's with it engaged. So as you can hear, and if you didn't hear it, you can rewind it back. You should hear a snappiness in the claps. You should hear it more focused, tight sound. Before the engaging of the compressor, you heard it a little bit more loose. It was a little bit more just kind of all over the place. This just tightens up the claps a little bit. Let's hear it one more time. I'm going to disengage it, play 4 bars, engage it, and just listen out for the difference. It's okay if you don't hear it the first time. It takes a while for your ears to be trained to listen to the differences, but there is a difference. Here we go. So now we engage it. So there you go, folks. Like I said, if you don't hear the difference, you can just rewind it until you hear the difference. With the compression in, kind of brings up a lot of the low end little air fizzle, kind of, I guess, distortion type high end to it, and compresses it at the same time, brings out the little bit of the body. I'm only compressing 3 dB, so it's not that much, but it's noticeable. So now let's move back to the EQ. I pretty much use the same EQ settings that I did in my snare. A couple dB at 6K, because that's what sounded good to my ear. 40 dB high pass, 40 hertz high pass. And we'll listen to this without EQ. I'll roll it 4 bars, and you can listen to it, and I'll engage the EQ. EQ engaged. So there you go. You should hear it a little more high in detail. It'll clean up of the low end a little bit. So now let's play the kick. Let's play pretty much, well, you're not going to hear the kick and the snare because they don't come in, but we'll hear the, what you're going to hear is the 808, the claps, the bass, and I believe a little bit of the crashes at the end. And I'll play it without, let's play it without, we'll play it without disengage compression and EQ, and then we'll engage it. Here we go. Engaging. So you should definitely hear a difference in how much more solid and smooth it sounds. Okay, so now let's move on to the instruments. So we have some different things going on. We'll start with the hook. This is where all the instruments play. So in the hook, we have some pads, piano, which I panned, arps, synths, and some guitars. So they're all pretty much bus to an instrument's bus. Okay. And I have a little tremolo effect on the arps. Just all it does is go left and right. Stock plugin from it's good plugin actually from in Logic Pro that I found. That was there forever, and I just kind of came across it. So yeah, don't sleep on your plugins that come with your DAW. There's a lot of good stuff out there. But anyway, let's get back to the instruments bus. So in the instruments bus, a high pass about 80, and I boosted the instruments about 9 dB. You know, again, ignore the numbers. It's just what sounded good to me in my ears. So I'm going to play the instruments bus without EQ, and then I'll play it mid-bar. EQ engage. See how that sounded? Sounded great. Much more defined. Much more defined with EQ. Took out the low end, took out a lot of that low mud, and you heard a lot of the high end fizzle. I'll play it one more time so you can hear it. This is without. This is with EQ. So it's a very nice sound stage. It's like the sounds are everywhere in your headphones. And again, which I didn't state earlier, but make sure you're listening to this stuff on a good pair of headphones or studio monitors. You're not going to really hear these differences on a phone or computer speakers. You need to get some good high fidelity monitoring systems, headphones, or your car even, or some studio monitors actually would be preferable. But you'll definitely hear them in some good headphones. Now let's listen to everything that we've done. At least the section here with the instruments, everything minus the vocals, pretty much, without processing, without compression and EQ, and then I'll engage it again. Huge difference. Again, if you didn't hear that, rewind and make sure you take a listen to it again. So we're going to move on to we'll do hooks, the hook bus. So basically it's the hook of the song, vocal. What I did here, I believe it was recorded with some analog equipment, a Neve 1073 EQ, and a compressor on the way in. So the vocal right now sounds very, very fat. And this is the raw vocal without EQ or compression. I'll just play it for you.
Caramel skin, sweet and tempting, body wrapped in pure affection. So enticing, no denying, you're a queen of fantasy. Caramel skin, sweet and tempting, body wrapped in pure affection. So enticing, no denying, you're a queen of fantasy.
So as you hear, it has that Neve kind of fatness. So we're gonna bring out a little more shine, clean up the mid range and everything on that. So the first thing again, we're gonna start out with compression, and we're going to use same ratio, same attack, release, and knee. And I'm gonna play it for you again without compression. Then I'll engage it midway through.
Caramel skin, sweet and tempting, body wrapped in pure affection. So enticing, no denying, you're a queen of fantasy.
With EQ.
Caramel skin, sweet and tempting, body wrapped in pure affection. So enticing, no denying, you're a queen of fantasy.
Again, very different, right? So with the compressor engaged, it kind of brings the vocal forward to you, a little bit more intimate. Brings up a little bit of those low-end details that maybe didn't show up before. So now what we'll do is we'll engage well, you know what? Let's listen to it one more time. I'll let you guys listen to it one more time without, and then I'll engage it within. With.
Caramel skin, sweet and tempting, body wrapped in pure affection. So enticing, no denying, you're a queen of fantasy.
With.
Caramel skin, sweet and tempting, body wrapped in pure affection. So enticing, no denying, you're a queen of fantasy.
All right, guys. So that's your compression on the vocal. Now we're going to go to the EQ, and I can walk through what I did on EQ. Probably a little more dramatic on the EQ, because there was some stuff that I didn't like, so I took it away. I kind of like the Logic Pro X stock compressor. It gives you a lot of options, a lot of frequencies to choose from where you can remove and boost and add stuff. So what I normally do is remove a lot of the low-end stuff, high-pass filter at 160. And you may also notice that the shelf, I also lowered as well to about 6 dB. What that does, it just kind of gently removes the low end out of the equation. I heard some frequencies at 240. Again, these numbers really don't mean anything. You have to kind of do a sweep on an EQ sweep. And if you don't know what an EQ sweep, there's plenty of YouTube tutorials on what an EQ sweep is. I'm not going to go over it here, but you basically fine tune your EQ, boost the gain all the way up, sweep till you hear what's not good, and then lower it a couple of dB. But I decided to lower it just 1 dB because I didn't want to take away too much character from the already great recording that we got. And these about 1, 2, 3, 4 frequencies I found that were causing a little bit of harshness. So I just removed about a dB of it. And I didn't add anything to the high end, because when you remove stuff, especially in these frequencies, the high end it'll actually make it sound like it has more high end. So removing or reducing frequencies is normally always better than adding. So here we go. We'll listen to it without EQ, and then we'll listen to it with.
Caramel skin, sweet and tempting, body wrapped in pure affection. So enticing, no denying, you're a queen of fantasy.
Here's with.
Caramel skin, sweet and tempting, body wrapped in pure affection. So enticing, no denying, you're a queen of fantasy.
So there you go. So it kind of removed a lot of the low end, cleaned up the mud, still retained a little bit of the clarity, and still a little bit of that Neve thing. I don't know what to call it. It's like a Neve thing that it adds to the vocal when you record a vocal through a Neve preamp and Neve compressor. So now let's listen to what that sounds like with the instruments on the hook, and we'll take away the processing, and then we'll add it back midway through. Here we go.
Caramel skin, sweet and tempting, body wrapped in pure affection. So enticing, no denying, you're a queen of fantasy. Caramel skin, sweet and tempting, body wrapped in pure affection. So enticing, no denying, you're a queen of fantasy.
There you go, folks. That's what it sounds like with all the processing in and without the processing. And again, you can rewind back to listen to it. Make sure you hear the difference, because it definitely is a difference. So now I'm going to move on to the hook Adlibs. And we're going to pretty much do the same thing. Like I said, I have a 3-part harmony in the hook Adlibs. I have a low, mid, and a high. How I like to pan them is I like to pan the mids closer together. And as I get higher in the frequency, I widen the pan. I like high frequencies very wide. They just give this airy spatial quality to it. So I'll do something like a 20 pan on the low, left and right, 40 for the mids, left and right, and 60 in highs. If you have Pro Tools, obviously it goes from 0 to 100, so I would do 30, 60, 90. I'll do something like that. So here we have all of the harmonies here. You might see that there are a lot of harmonies here because a lot of them are just duplicated. We just recorded them a few times. What we're going to focus on right now is listening to the hook Adlibs bus, which are basically all of these Adlibs that I showed you earlier, and I just bust them to a track, an aux. So we'll listen to this without compression, and then midway through, after the 4th bar, I'll engage compression. You can listen to see what it does.
You got what I like. You got what I like.
Engage compression.
You got what I like. You've got what I like.
Now, I know what you're going to say. There is so much headphone bleed in those Adlibs. That's because I like the headphone bleed. I like it like that. I could gate it out, but to me, it just sounded very choppy and unnatural. If this was a live band, there would be bleed anyway. And you're not going to really hear it within the context of the mix anyway. So I hope it wasn't too overpowering for you. So I'll play it again without compression and with compression. What you'll notice is the compressor kind of contains all of the Adlibs, because he sings the 3-part harmony very differently, dynamically. And engaging the compressor controls the dynamics and tightens it up, so to speak. Let's listen to that again.
You got what I like. You've got what I like.
Here's with.
You got what I like. You've got what I like.
So as you can hear, it tightened it up quite a bit. So now let's move on to the EQ. Same with the lead vocals, kind of the same settings. Only thing I did was boost up around the 6K area, because I like Adlibs to be airy, just this airy. It's like a background airy effect, and that's kind of how I like it to sound. That's how I do my Adlibs. You may do yours differently. Some people tuck the Adlibs behind the leads. I like to accentuate the Adlibs. So let's hear what it sounds like without the EQ, and then I'll engage it midway through.
You got what I like. You got what I like.
With EQ.
You got what I like. You've got what I like.
So as you can hear, they got very airy. You know, they sound very silky, very smooth, very airy. A lot of that low end mud is gone. So now let's listen to it in context with the rest of the instruments that we actually engage the compression EQ on. And I'm going to play it with and without. Here we go.
Caramel skin, sweet and tempting, body wrapped in pure affection. So enticing, no denying, you're a queen of fantasy. Caramel skin, sweet and tempting, body wrapped in pure affection. So enticing, no denying, you're a queen of fantasy.
Oh man, it sounds very thick, but yet controlled, but open, airy. So now let's move on to the lead vocals. Let's listen to the lead bus without compression, and then I'll engage it halfway through the verse. Here we go.
I've got it all, everything I want, material possession, everything money can buy.
With compression.
But what I need, you can provide. All I need is you in my life, so I can have.
So once again, you heard the vocals come up front. They're more present. A lot of that high-end little fizz or sparkle is captured. So now let's go ahead and engage the EQ and see what that does. Pretty much the same settings. You know, only thing difference is I didn't add that little bump in the 6K area that I liked because I wanted to keep the leads naturally flat. So let's listen to it without EQ, and then we'll listen to it with EQ.
I've got it all, everything I want, material possession, everything money can buy. But what I need, you can provide. All I need is you in my life, so I can have.
All right, so there's your lead vocals. So what we're going to do now is we're going to engage all of the, we're going to engage the kick, the claps, bass, leads. I mean, I'm going to have them all highlighted. You're not going to hear them, but, you know, just for the sake of consistency, we'll highlight them all. And we'll listen to the first verse without compression and EQ, then I'll engage it halfway through. Here we go.
I've got it all, everything I want, material possession, everything money can buy. But what I need, you can provide. All I need is you in my life, so I can act.
Let's listen to that one more time so you can hear it without compression EQ.
I've got it all, everything I want, material possession, everything money can buy. But what I need, you can provide. All I need is you in my life, so I can act.
All right, there you go, folks. You should hear a big difference. Smoother, sounds more finished and polished. So now the last part of here is the adlibs. The lead adlibs are very different than the hook adlibs. Again, 3-part harmony, nothing fancy. As you can see, lows, mids, highs, pan left, middle, and right. 20, 40, 60. How I like them. Highs, pan way out, mids, pan in the middle, and lows close together. So we're going to listen to this again. Same compression settings, you know, trying to reach about 60 dB on my vocals in compression and gain reduction. Again, same attack, release, and ratio in me. Here we go. See if you can listen to the lead ad-libs in the first verse. I'm going to play it with without compression, and then I'll engage it halfway through the verse.
You in my life.
So there you go. You should have heard a more tightness and, again, more cohesive sound with the compression on. I'll play it one more time so you can listen to it. But you're listening for tightness, cohesiveness, solidness, a little bit of control on the top end. Here we go, and play it without, and then I'll play it with halfway through the verse.
You in my life.
All right. So here we go back to the EQ again. Same kind of settings I did with the Adlibs on the hook. Same exact settings. Just kept it consistent. So I'm looking for the consistent sound. And it's what sounded good to my ears. So here we go. We're going to listen to the lead Adlibs without EQ, and then I'll engage it halfway through.
You in my life.
So you should have been able to hear a drastic difference with the Adlibs. So now let's play everything together. I'll play it without engaging the EQ and compressor, and then I'll play it with. So let's start from the hook first. I'll take a little bit before the hook, and then I'll just engage it in, engage it out up until the second hook comes in after the first verse, and just listen to what you hear. Here we go.
You got what I like. Caramel skin, sweet and tempting, body wrapped in pure affection. You got what I like. So enticing, no denying, you're a queen of fantasy. You got what I like. Caramel skin, sweet and tempting, body wrapped in pure affection. You got what I like. So enticing, no denying, you're a queen of fantasy. I've got it all. Everything I want, material possession, everything money can buy. But what I need, you can provide. All I need is you in my life, so I can laugh.
And there you go, folks. Compression and EQ. I know this was a little bit long, but I wanted to get through each track to show you how it's done. Thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed that tutorial on compression and EQ. I hope it answered a lot of your questions. And if you have more questions, feel free to comment in the comment section, and just reach out and we can get a dialogue going. Maybe you have some tricks in your tool set, some tools in your toolbox that I can use, and vice versa. So this is where I love the collaboration of YouTube. You know, nothing is no longer a secret. We can share and get these ideas out so we can make better music. That's the goal, to make better sounding music. So I'm all for anything that's for better sounding music, no matter what genre. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. We'll be seeing you on the next one. That one will be on reverb and delay and how and spatial processing. You guys enjoy. Have a great day.